Welcome to this discussion on the platinum area at Fifield, New South Wales for Rimfire Pacific Mining. The focus will be on the Platina Lead structure and sampling. You can see that the project areas sit within the Lachlan-Cadia lineament structure shown in two black parallel lines. This is a highly mineralised corridor which includes Newcrest Cadia mines, which is gold copper, and the North Parks copper gold mine owned by Rio Tinto. Just for scale, if we have a look at the two pits at North Parks, the right of the two pits is approximately 500 metres in diameter. The North Parks mine sits within the corridor and approximately 50 kilometres from the township of Fifield, and the Rimfire tenements shown in red. Within this corridor we also have the Ivanhoe owned nickel laterite deposit known as Sept, that's shown in the blue and dark purple. As we look at the structures within the company's tenements, we can note the yellow lines representing the deep lead structures that were mined historically. The longer of the two is the Platina Lead, and this sits predominantly on the company's freehold. To the right of that we have the Platina Gillimbine bedrock platinum areas, and the inferred shear zones are shown by the white hash lines that occur on that structure. As we pan in closer, we see the company's mineral claims, in which we have the pit 1 area denoted in yellow-orange and the plant location for Rimfire's processing facilities also shown. The company intends to sample the Platina Lead structure.
This aerial photograph, Fifield little village up here, the Rimfire freehold property here, the road coming in from Condobolin up there. Roughly the scale, there's 1 kilometre, and that's the actual Platina deep lead that we hear so much about. The bedrock areas with the platinum in it are essentially exposed in that corridor there and continuing, less defined, but continuing down here. But what we've found after a lot of work is that the platinum bearing bedrock which covers this area is extending across there, so the actual lead is developed right on top of platinum bearing bedrock. And the actual lead uses many of the shear zones in the bedrock to actually be the soft channel that it picks out. And so even on this photo you can see that direction like that, which is the shear zone direction. There are other directions. The platinum bearing bedrock is coming through that direction and in that direction. So if we go to the mapping of that, such as here, this is a detailed map of the actual lead. Now this is twice the scale of that one. So this is a detailed plan view of the lead. The working down here has been very continuous, with no gaps whatsoever. It gets up to here, it's still 15 metres from the surface, and yet the lead is actually lost. Now that's the end of the 1890 era of mining. Our work has shown that the lead valley does continue up. Now what our job is to find why they lost it, and we expect the lead to continue in an unmined form for quite some distance. It's still 15 metres below surface, so it has a long way to go before it actually breaks through to today's land surface. So we have designed trenches along here. The need for trenches rather than drill holes is somewhat displayed by this map. And this map is an interpretation of where the actual gutters are going in the bedrock floor. It is demonstrating that the bedrock floor is quite complicated with gutters. Now drill holes become quite hit and miss across that type of configuration, but what does work well is trenches that go right across. So that's what we've gone for, and we're going to start off with a series of trenches that go right across the lead, and they will intersect any gutters, highs, lows, and of course platinum that isn't actually stuck in the gutter. So it's a better approach than drilling, It does require some fairly complex earthworks to be able to test these. These ones will be down to about 18 or 19 metres deep, so it's beyond the reach of an excavator from the surface, so we have to do a first cut to lower the excavator down about 6 metres below the surface. The real interest in this is that we're able to look in through the deep lead. The deep lead has the capacity to come in quickly as a cash flow for the company in an open cut operation. It also has the capacity for us to explore this platinum bearing ground somewhat with the trenches, but more particularly with follow-on open cut mining. Our studies have shown that this platinum is quite ragged and that most of it is locally derived. Originally it would have been quite reasonable to have expected a couple of particular small source areas feeding down in the old creek and the platinum just diminishing. We have simply found that that's not the case. That the platinum is quite rough down here. It has not travelled down the creek, and it gives us a very firm impression that the platinum has travelled into the old creek and basically lays in the bottom of the creek, immovable by the shallow gradient of the creek. That means we have actual platinum sources in specific things, particularly those areas that line up like that. If I can just show you a cross section, this little hand-drawn section would be typical of across the lead. Now, the bedrock from the old valley, that would have been the active bedrock floor of the creek. The original valley side would have gone up there. It's subsequently been eroded down, so the bedrock turns out there and goes with the alluvium cover out to the side. But when we got to the deep lead, what we get to is a gravel channel buried by clay. Thousands of old workings have gone down and they have partially mined this gravel. That is what the old guys took out. They had to get the high grades of sort of around the 15 grams to pay for its treatment and the cost of mining by hand, because they have to mine quite a lot of material just to get the bit they're going to process. So all these shafts have been studied, mapped. These shafts actually dig into the bedrock, so we're able to look at the bedrock from directly below the shaft areas. When we go to trench it, our trench will go right across the whole panel, just like that. And we will get sections of this style and perfect sampling right across here, around about 30 tonnes of gravel per sample. And we have 6 of these planned at the moment to traverse the valley and see what the grade is for the remaining gravel. The lead, of course, gets lost as it goes to the north, as we were saying, so we believe that the gravel will definitely continue, and it's quite an exciting target because the lead is getting slightly shallower as you go north, and there's no reason at all that we could even think of that would say that the platinum source should have run out. So we'll be putting effort into following the lead where it hasn't been mined. So that's basically the deep lead. We will get to study the bedrock. We will get to make money out of the gravel if this grade is as high as we would like. And that configuration, that depth there, which will set the overburden to waste ratio, that is varying between about 15 and about 22 metres, which is quite within the realms of economic mining. That distance will vary from about 30 metres to about 70 metres across there. So it becomes quite a mineable configuration.